Oh man, here we are. The winter has arrived. It has been flurrying and all kinds of just nasty. It's cold. You know what? It's cold. It's really too cold. Oh man, I tried my best. I tried my best to ignore the fact that winter was coming. No more warm weather. Gonna be working on cars less. And I tried to ignore the fact that this car is a troublemaker. Yeah, I really wonder what I got myself into with this one. Alright, so it's no surprise that if you've been following the car here, that it's been a little problematic, kind of one thing after another. So I have a few updates about those problems and the solutions that I've applied to those problems. Of course, in the last video about the discovering the coil packs and stuff and whatnot, I do have parts coming. I went ahead and ordered all the parts I needed, slowly but surely getting them. You know, I kind of have a whole box full of stuff here, so we're going to be kind of doing a whole ignition makeover, completely different from what it was, still using the same factory coil packs, ignition control module, you know, all that stuff, but just, you know, how it was originally was when I got the car. You know, I made the bracket here that we'll be mounting the coil packs to, so they'll sit here on this side, kind of almost in the same kind of spot as the factory would be over there, but since the engine's turned 180 degrees from how it is in a front-wheel drive car, you know, obviously that changes the orientation of where you can mount it, but I made a bracket here on this tensioner bracket, so it should be able to mount it there pretty easily. I don't see why I couldn't. And yeah, the other big thing is, have you noticed, see this big cable here? Well, this is one of the big ground cables that was running from the front of the car. It was running through the center console along with the positive cable to the back. I don't even know, maybe I can find pictures or something, but they originally had it running from the battery up through here. They have two holes right here, through the cowl panel into the firewall, through a couple holes. That didn't make sense to me. And the fact that the ground cable went from the battery straight back and just attached to the engine block. And that's the only place it went, was to the engine block. It didn't go anywhere else. So let me get you up on speed of what I've been doing here. I've been actually really busy working on wiring with this car, and I'm getting it figured out. So first, as you can see, the positive cable is no longer running up into the cowl panel. It is running straight through the firewall right here. It goes practically just above the gas pedal, and it's almost a direct shot to the center console and the cutoff switch. So that's that. The ground cable. Also, I made some adjustments. I shortened it, and I pretty much put a stud right here. I don't know if you can see, hold on, right here, that's going to ground the battery directly to the chassis. So the battery gets grounded to the chassis there. Positive cable was shortened, which still goes to the switch there. Let's see if I can get a better shot. Which not only cleans up all the wires in the center console here, but it gets rid of a lot of unnecessary cable I didn't need in this car. Also, I made a very interesting discovery. Not to say the wiring was done wrong in terms of what wires went where, but the type of wires used was completely wrong. And I'll show you that in a minute. But the update is, the ground cable no longer runs all the way from the front to the back. Instead, we are utilizing the chassis as it should be, as a central grounding point, and then ground everything to it. So, the battery up front is grounded to the chassis. This is the cable that was going to the engine block. It's still attached down there. I cut it, and basically they're going to run this over to a point, can't really see, but the alternator's right down here, and I'm just going to run it right to the top of the alternator so it grounds the case of the alternator. And then where they did have the coil pack mounted, right down in here, there's a bunch of holes already, so I'm just going to utilize one of them holes, clean it up. I may get like a distribution block or something to mount there, and I'm just going to do a central ground right down there on the frame rail, and that should work good for all my grounds, for the sensors and stuff. Everything's going to have a nice central ground. Okay, so with that said, remember I said about how everything was wired in terms of the battery cable, and not to say it was wrong, but the type of wire was used. So this right here, I'm pretty sure this is 8 gauge. Yep, 8 gauge, just as I thought. This wire was running from the alternator up to the cutoff switch. So the whole purpose of these cutoff switches is to cut the power from the alternator to the battery, to disconnect those two things. That's all they do. So the way they had it was the power cable from the battery went to the switch. Then it went to the other side of the switch through the cable you see here back to the starter. Okay? And then that thin 8 gauge cable came from the alternator. From that came back up through the firewall, back up here to the other side of the switch that's connected to the battery so it can charge. So the alternator was charging through an 8 gauge cable while everything else was using 0 gauge. That did not make any sense to me whatsoever. What's the point of using big 0 gauge wire if your charging system isn't even utilizing it? So I've made some changes. Like I said, I shortened the cable coming up from the front. I shortened it so it connects right here. Took off that cable from the alternator. And instead, we're using this big, nice, chunky 0 gauge cable that's now running to the alternator. So I don't even know if I can show without. Maybe I can creep under the car here a second. That 0 gauge is right here. This now goes to the alternator, okay? And I just bridged the starter to the alternator, just like so, right? Wonderful. So now the alternator is outputting to 0 gauge cable, and the starter is also utilizing the 0 gauge still as well. That to me is such a better way of doing it. I quite honestly cannot understand why whoever did that decided to do it, excuse me, that way. I just feel like that was more work. I don't know. Maybe it seems like everything was an afterthought. It seemed like that 8 gauge cable was ran separately from the rest of it. I don't know. Things were obviously changed at some point. And also, I know it's just so much stuff, and I'm all over the place with everything. But I ended up getting this made. Now this is the, what do you call it? Words, Kirk, words. The harness that went from the connects to the coil pack, or the ICM rather, and then to the rest of the harness on the car. Well, because I am relocating the, what do you call it? The whole coil pack assembly, this harness was not long enough, so I extended it, and actually I have to touch up some of the tape. It's kind of coming apart here. But I extended it and, taped it all up, re-loomed everything, so everything was nice, neat, and protected. So essentially, yeah, you're looking at it wrong. It goes this way. So this will go under here, like so, something like that. And, it'll connect to all the other stuff over there somewhere. And then this, which is the part that goes to the ignition control module, obviously I'll get like connected right there like that. So be nice and neat, super clean, almost the way it should have been from the factory, right? It's about as factory clean as you're gonna get, realistically, with the custom install like this. I mean, I'm no professional, but I do what I can. So yeah, this was also part of many days in the works here with getting this wiring done. I mean, I'm on the home stretch, baby. I am on the home stretch. I have everything I need except the new coils, which I did order the coils from ZZ Performance. Were they necessary? I don't know. I'd like to say that they are slightly better than a factory style coil, but aesthetically they do look better. I hate the fact that I have to spend the money that they cost, but it is what it is. It's been a fight, man. It's been a struggle one way or another. Oh my God. Talk about struggle. Dude, let me tell you. Okay. Using the zero gauge wiring, obviously, you know, you want to use zero gauge ring terminals, right? You know, you can go get the copper ones, you know, nice solid copper ring terminals, and that's what I wanted to use because I knew I was going to be doing a lot of work with the big zero gauge wire. Well, I mean, I've looked everywhere. I've checked multiple hardware stores, multiple automotive parts stores, and I cannot find zero freaking gauge copper. I mean, nothing. No zero gauge ring terminals for nothing. Nope. I mean, I've looked everywhere, and I was getting so upset. I could find every size, like 2 gauge, 4 gauge, 8 gauge, everything up, but nothing past 2 gauge I could find. I could find zero gauge cable, not the freaking ring terminals. So my last stop I checked, because according to their website they were supposed to have some, was Lowe's. And I get there, I go to the aisle that they're supposed to be in. Lo and behold, they're not on the shelf. There's nothing there. There's not even a freaking tag for it in the price. None of it's there. Gone. So I'm like, okay, is there a copper ring terminal shortage for some dumb reason? So I'm like, screw it. Because I needed like 7 of them. And actually, as of now, it would have been more. We're probably approaching 9 total because I needed to cut and remix so many different cables. But, you know, it takes 2 a piece for each connection for most of it, right? Like, each one of them ring terminals are like $4 a piece. So, you know, we're looking at $50, $60 for just freaking copper ring terminals. I did some research on the thickness of zero gauge wire, figured out exactly how big it was, and then decided to just go ahead and get a big, well, this is what's left over, but this was started life as a 24-inch piece of copper pipe. And with a little bit of craftsmanship, I just started making my own terminals. I mean, these are dead simple to make. I don't even know why it costs so much for them. I mean, look, I made, like, this is one, I still have to make a few more now that I've used more than I thought I needed. But, I mean, I've made already so many of them. I still have probably 4 more left in this piece of pipe, which only cost $8. So for $8, I ended up making every single connector I needed. That would probably cost me otherwise $60-some to buy separately, already made. And, you know, while, yes, it's annoying the fact that I couldn't find all those connectors, the good thing is I have saved myself so much money by making my own. So yeah, man, this car, it's keeping me busy, that's for sure. And look, I'd rather take surprises like this that are relatively simple to fix than, let's say, stuff like the Fox body, where I found those nice big rusty patches under the rear seat that were, you know, the whole rear panels are pretty much rotted out from, I guess, water leaking through the top and not draining. I'm happy where these are the only problems I'm discovering. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of give another little update here on the Fiero, and hopefully here soon I'll be up and running. Anyway, it's a little cold out here, so I'm gonna start getting working on here before I lose my daylight and a little bit of warmth I have from the sun. It's gonna wrap it up here for the video. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share with everyone you know. If you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Keep a lookout for the next True Car Enthusiast video.